Hello and welcome to Wealth Power, the Reading Room. I'm Camille Babin. I am so delighted to have you today. Join me in the reading room. And the book that I want us to read just shortly is called The Magic of Thinking Big. So that's the book. I will definitely post the link in the description so that you can refer to that if you want to purchase it, probably on Amazon. Or I actually read this book I believe last year, sometime last year. But these are the kind of books that you just don't read once, you just read and you just wait maybe a couple of months and you kind of go back to it. Why? Because it's filled with so many nuggets. Like when you read just once, yes, you get excited, but it can be difficult also to apply everything that you read, because the goal for me in reading is not just to learn or just to read for the sake of reading, but it's really being able to apply some of the wisdom that we gain from it. I think reading is one of the best mentorship tools that we can get, because we read the experiences of other people. We learn from their mistakes, we learn from the lessons that they are willing to share. And sometimes it's like it's just so many. And even what I can say is also, sometimes it's like you can read it, it might not be applicable to your current situation. So when you read it later, then you can find like another gem, and you can say, oh, that's the solution for this, and it kind of give you clarity or maybe understanding or guidance pertaining to maybe what you're facing at that moment. So again, the book is The Magic of Thinking Big by David Schwartz. I want to read just one chapter. I mean, I won't read the entire chapter, because the thing is, you can see I have notes like everywhere, highlights and sticky notes and pen marks. I mean, you name it. For me, it's like before I used to be so pristine with my books, and I would say, I don't want any marking on my books. I want them to be clean. And I still do. I still want them, to be clean, but it's more like on the outside, right? Because I realize that the more I highlight or I write, especially writing, um, you can tell already I'm a writer. I always, talk about journaling or writing something down. It's very important, because when you read, it's not just what the author is telling you, it's also what you're hearing. I will always say the voice behind the voice, what you're hearing, because when you read, for me, as a believer, I also believe that the Holy Spirit, the Lord, is speaking to me through the things that I'm reading. So sometimes it's not just what you read that's important, it's what you hear while you read it, the things that are not written. So that's why I would recommend, if you were just like me and you say, I want my book to be clean, it's okay, just drop that habit and get a pencil. It doesn't have to be in pencil, and you can just write what God is telling you. Sometimes what I do also, I have tons of journals. You will see, like, I have tons of small journals like that. And what I will do when I read a book, I write the date and I write the title, and whatever quote or inspiration or those things that I hear from the Lord, through the reading, through the book that I'm reading, I also write them down. So this way later I can go back to my notes, and we will have a lot of that, because even with the reading, like some books, I may not want to go to them necessarily, but I might just want to share maybe something that I learned from it in one of my book notes. So without further ado, let's just go to this chapter. It's chapter 10, Get the Action Habit. And it's at first I wanted to talk about is another thought that, I mean, another thing that he mentioned, and he was talking about our mind being a thought factory, and I loved it. So that's really where I wanted us to go. But then I felt like, no, the Lord wanted, I don't know what this is for, but it's like, no, talk about this chapter instead. Get the action habit. And I will just read a few passage here and there, and then we can just go to it quickly and wrap it up for the day. So he started by saying, here is something leaders in every field agree on: there is a shortage of top flight expertly qualified persons to fill key positions. There really is, as the saying goes, plenty of room at the top. As one executive explained, there are many almost qualified people, but there is one success ingredient often missing. That is the ability to get things done. to get results. There is another book also that is called Getting Things Done. As I read that, that's just what it reminded me of. And I'm sure, we can all agree, right, that yes, we do have is saying that here, even excellent ideas are not enough. Like, we do have a lot of people that will tell you, oh my God, I have, great ideas, or I'm filled with ideas, and you can tell them, you can tell already that these people have great ideas. But sometimes what we realize is great ideas is not enough, and that's what the author is saying here. He's saying excellent ideas are not enough. An only fair idea acted upon and developed is 100% better than a terrific idea that dies because it isn't followed up. So before I even continue, let me just ask you, how often do you find yourself thinking about something and the idea is great? Sometimes it's not like we need validation from other people, but when you will share the idea, people will say, yes, that's a great idea. And then it's almost as if the next days that follow, or maybe the minute that follow, we talk about it, and then that's it. We literally let it die. We don't think about it. And I want to nuance what I said, because I know that sometimes it's not the season yet. You have that idea. It's just as if the seed is being planted, and you need to allow time for that idea to mature, right? You need to allow time for all the pieces to move together. I know there is time for that, but this is not what we're talking about here. We're talking about the ideas that, like, they're ready. They come mature, they come like, all you need is just do it, just do it. But then the thing is, we don't do it, and that's what he continued to reference. The great self-made merchant John Wanamaker often say, nothing comes merely by thinking about it. So often there are things that we just think about it, and we wish they could happen immediately, right? We wish we didn't have to do anything. We could just snap our finger and they will get done. But this is not how it works, and we know it. Know it. This is not how it works. And he's really drawing the parallel and talking about how all these ideas, or things that we see today in the world, things that we use, or inventions, they came from ideas. But it's not just ideas. The people who had those ideas, they chose to get in action. They chose to, like, just follow through with it. And he listed many cases that reference that. This book is really a great book. I don't get paid for talking about this book. I just love reading, and I felt like I want to share, because I know, again, I was saying that last week. I know some people don't necessarily like to read, or they don't see value in it. So my goal is that, I want to kind of create or inspire you to maybe like change that a little bit, find more value in reading, because there is just so much. They said leaders are readers, right? So anyway, there is this story that I want us to talk about, and it's still in the same chapter. That's where we'll stay. He says first, now is the magic word of success. Last week I talked about the key to success. And of course, we started with the Bible, the word of God. But when he said now is the magic word of success, what do you think about? Because you know what I think about when I read it. That's why I say you read it, but make sure that you hear the voice behind this voice. The author is speaking, right? But there is also what God is speaking to you. So for me, when I read now is the magic word of success, you know what I thought about? I thought about Hebrews 11. Now faith is. Now faith is. And he's telling us here, now is the magic word of success, right? So God is even telling us, when you act in faith in the moment, when I give you an instruction and you act upon it, that's the word for success. Now is the word of success. Tomorrow, next week, later, sometime, someday, often as not, often as not, are synonyms for the failure word. Never. Can you hear that? Lots of good dreams never come true because we say, I will start someday. When we should say, I will start now, right now. So instead of us saying, I will start someday, we should say, I will start now, right now. And it's giving the story of this couple. Again, there are many stories, but this one spoke to me, like for this moment. He was talking about this young couple, and he said that this guy, that's his name is Bill, and his wife Janet, they made $1,000 a month. That was their income. and they spent also $1,000 each month. And both wanted to save, but there were always reasons why they felt they couldn't begin. So for years, they had promised themselves, we will start when we get a raise. Did you hear that? When we've caught up with our installments, when we are over the hump next month, next year. How often do we do the same? I want this thing, I'm going to start investing. Yes, when I have this thing, I'm going to start this project when this thing happens, right? We always tie it to something that gives us, sometimes that's really the procrastination factor, because it gives us more time to delay. It gives us, like a sensation that we've made the decision, but at the same time we know that it's not truly a decision if it doesn't have a date on it, because we know that the thing that we're tying that decision to is something that is out of our control. So it's easy for us to kind of give us a pass and say, I will do it when the kids, go to college. I will do it when, again, I have a raise. You don't know when that raise is going to come. You don't know. And even when that happens, you don't know what kind of circumstances you'll be living in. So that's kind of what they were doing. And we can see ourselves in it. No matter what it is, you can add whatever idea you had or whatever decision you thought you made, or maybe, like intention you set, because it's more an intention than a decision. And there's always something that calls us to say, oh, I'll do that next time, I'll do it next week, this time I wasn't able to do it. So finally his wife got disgusted with the failure to save. So she said to B, look, do we want to save or don't we? He replied, of course we do, but you know as well as I, we can't put aside anything now. But for once she was in that mood, she was like, really getting to action, like, I'm tired, today or never, because I know if we don't move now, like, how many of us like having, people close to us sometimes, even sometimes we find ourselves being that, and we say, no, 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 you've said that long enough, now we're going to start, right? And then you kind of thankful later that they pushed you to start, that they came, and really encouraged you and motivated you to take action. That's really what his wife was here for. That's what she did. She was tired. And I think we have to reach also a level of dissatisfaction, not with ourselves necessarily, but with our circumstances. Sometimes we leave a lot like into God's hand and say, oh, when God will decide, almost like God, is in his feelings. Right? Is that when God will decide, when that would be, maybe when he's happy with me, or when he wants to do this. No, sometimes it's not about when God already laid those plans on your heart. Now you take that to battle. You take that to him. Now you decide, once you said, okay, Lord, I'm ready for it, it's going to bring the right people, because sometimes we get stuck because we look around like, oh, I don't have what I need. I don't have these people. There's no one to help. Just like the man at the pool of Bethesda, right? That was like, oh, there is no one to help me. Every time I want to jump in the water, someone come before me. But when Jesus really was tired of, he wasn't even hearing his excuse, because that's all they were, just excuses. And then he said, do you want to be healed? Right? So God will ask you, whatever idea you have right now in your heart, and you're thinking about, and you're delaying, and you're postponing, and you finding way, to not make it happen. Do you really want that thing? Are you sure you want it? Because if you do want it, then the moment is now. So now his wife, just say, we've been telling ourselves for years that we're going to start a savings program. We don't save because we think we cannot. Now let's start thinking we can. You see, sometimes we think it's just so, we need so much. But it's just, that's why I wanted to talk about the mind being a thought factory, because everything hinges upon what we think. That's why the Bible teaches us, as a man think in his heart, so is he. Whatever thought you think, whether be about you or about the obstacles that you're facing, the challenges, your situation, whenever you say or you label them as being difficult, guess what? You're not going to be able to do it, because that's already what you said. If you say, like, I can't do this thing, or you think about yourself even like as maybe like a failure, or you think about yourself as unable or inadequate, or whatever label you want to give, guess what, that would be the reality. So that's what she was reminding him. She was reminding him that we can do anything. If we think that we can, it's possible. And today, that's what I want to tell you, because those ideas that are on your heart, the things that you know it's the time to do it, but you're just finding or looking for reason for excuse not to do it because you think you can't, or maybe you think you're going to fail. And if you think you're going to fail, then you will fail. But if you think in your heart that you will succeed, guess what? You will succeed, right? So now the wife really like tells him, we have to do it right now. Let's think that we can. Let's start thinking right. Let's change our thinking process, our thinking pattern. Let's make sure that we break this pattern of, like not being able to do it, of, we just spending. Basically, she wanted to interrupt their action, their habits, and start a new one. But the thing is, you have to start a new habit at the thought level. Many times we try to change habits. We say, I'm gonna lose weight, but it's not about, like what you do, because then the next day you say, I'm going to the gym and I'm going to run, 5 miles, and I'm going to eat all my salad and veggies and whatever. But the thing is, if you haven't changed your thinking pattern, you know that it's not going to be long before you return back to it. That's the prime example. So now they had to really change the way they view even saving. And I want to ask you, whatever you want to do right now that is not that you're not doing, I want you to take a piece of paper and assess what are your thoughts concerning this thing. What are you thinking about this idea that you have that is causing you not to move? Where do you find yourself right now? All the thoughts, I want you to list them, not to validate them, but just so you become aware, because you cannot change anything that you are not aware of. So once you are aware of the thinking pattern, or the way you're thinking, or the thoughts that you have towards that thing or that idea, or maybe those people, then it will change completely, or at least you will be empowered to change those things, because now you will see. And then once you do that, you ask yourself the question, what will happen if, and you change, like, if I do this thing, knowing this or that, what will happen? You will see that really sometimes we make something like a big deal out of things that are so small. We see that we magnify the obstacles, we magnify the challenges or the difficulties. But once you start listing those things and paying attention to it, you realize that, you know what, I can start here. I can do this little step. It's not that big of a deal. So now you will be happy to hear and to learn that because they started thinking that way. The wife told him, she said, I saw an ad today that shows if we save just $100 a month in 15 years, we'd have $18,000 plus 6,600 accumulated interest. And she goes on to say, the ad also said it's easier to spend what's left over after savings than it is to save what's left over after spending. If you are game, let's start with 10% of your pay and let's save off the top. We may eat crackers and milk before the month is up, but if we have to, we will. So guess what? That's what they did for a few months, and then they adjusted to the new budget. Now they feel it's just as much fun to spend money on savings as it is to spend it on something else. I love it. I'll start with the end of this statement and I'll come right back up and we close. So, like you see the word that he used, even he said, and he put that in quotes, he said it's much fun to spend money on savings as it is to spend on something else. And you see, that's the great twist. It's a way of thinking, but it's also changing our word, right? Because you see that if the people that love to spend, right? It, this statement right there just encapsulate the whole idea, like everything. Because if you are a spender and you cannot save, if you think about saving as just, like you not being able to spend, then you see you won't do it. But now for them, if they consider that they're spending money on saving, they see saving as an expense. Because they are spenders, they don't mind doing it. And now it's fun because they're spending, but they're spending on savings. You see the twist of word. So I want to ask you, do the same thing. Sometimes I know, not too long ago, I had this amazing group of women that were just, having our conversation, because we do our meeting weekly, like really our money talk, for women. And we were talking about budget. And I realized when I asked the question, many of them were like, I don't want to do a budget, I feel like it's restrictive, and this, which, I shared the opinion also, because at some point that was me. And I just told them, okay, what if we switch that word? Instead of saying budget, we said your money map. And they were like, I like that. All of a sudden it changed it because I was telling them, look at it like it's just your GPS or your map, like before, that tells you how you're getting where you're going, what you need to do, what's on the way. So if you look at it like that, you see it changes your perspective. Deal, that was done. So that's kind of the same twist and the same thing here that is happening. So whatever works for you to really make you to or help you do what you need to do, just find the word, change it if that makes you, because the thing, everything is really mental. Once you get used to it and it feels, like in alignment with what your belief, that's when you will move. But everything that seems contradictory or in contrast with your belief, you will not do it. So now I go up real quick to, when she was giving all the things, and she said, I saw an ad today that says, if we save this, if we do that. And what I want to say also, and to wrap up with that, to close with this, is there are ideas that you have, and maybe you're not acting on it because, yes, of course, I'm passing by, overlooking the fear and all these things, because, they really are, I mean, they're not even like a thing, they really don't matter. They're irrelevant. But I want us to also consider the fact that sometimes you don't act on it because you don't have a plan. You don't have a strategy. You don't have the know how, right? So that's why books really come handy, because when you read, people sometimes have already the solution for what you're looking for. You just need to use your imagination a little bit to see how their stories apply to yours, how, what they did in one area maybe is transferable in another area. She found a plan, she found a solution, or she found a strategy from the ads, that, what, we don't have, because we don't say it because we don't know how to, or maybe because we think this is what we need to do. But this ad is just telling us we start with $100 and look where we will be. And you see, that's what they did. And also she found already a way to, like implement, or I would say even like have boundaries and make sure that they can stick to it, because she said, let's do it from the top, because what will happen if we wait until we do it at the end, we will just be at square one. It will be the same thing, nothing will change. So that's what they had to decide to do, and they change it. And I want to ask you now, as I'm closing this, I want to ask you, what is this idea that is on your heart, that the time is now for, that what, this message is for me, this reading today is for me, this whole chapter, maybe I need to get the book so I can read, because there are more stories in it. And it may not be even the stories, it may just be a statement, just the word. But I want you to remember and to think about it. Now is the magic word of success, like the author is saying. And God is telling you the same. He's saying, use your faith now. Use your faith now to turn that idea into action. Get the action habit. Get things moving, because you don't want to live with regret just because you had all these great ideas and you knew those dreams and those thoughts and those, intentions in your heart, they came from the Lord, but you failed to act on it. You failed to move. Why? Because of fear, because you were complacent, because you were too comfortable, or maybe because you worry about what people are going to think, or maybe you feel like you don't have what it takes. No matter what the reason is, today is the day for you. Get the action habit. Just do it. Like they say, just do it. So I just hope you enjoyed this session. I surely did, having to read the book again and read this story. I'm already thinking, how can I apply that? Where do I need to go? So, anyway, thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. If that message bless you, feel free, please, to share and like and subscribe. Definitely subscribe, so that, at least we can bring that message to other people. So, I will be back next week. The reading room is every Friday. So I'll be back next week. But on Wednesday, actually, I do the Wealth Power podcast. Is still on the same channel, so you can definitely follow. And it's also on all the podcast platform. So don't forget to get your book, The Magic of Thinking Big. That's what I just read today. And I will see you next week with another book.